welcome Saruhan Hatipoglu, CEO of Beri Consulting. Welcome back to the show. And Anil Gupta, who is the Professor of Strategy and Globalization and Entrepreneurship at the University of Maryland's Business School, right down the street from here. Gentlemen,
good to see you again.
Welcome. I guess the first question is, George Soros, he's always made controversial statements. So the easiest question is he right? Saruhan?
Well, I found those comments to be overly pessimistic, and I think if you look at the article in general, like you mentioned, he's talking about economic growth being taken or picked over structural reform was a good idea. He also says in the third meeting of the Communist Party, the reform measures that were adopted helped global economic improvement. So it is not just that sentence that people are concentrating on. He's talking about that concentrates on imbalances. It's more of a balanced approach, actually, but he's being over pessimistic with that specific statement.
Are you a fan of Mr. Soros?
No, I think, Mr. Soros is generally right, but not always right. But I think rather than agree or disagree with Mr. Soros, I'd just like to share my perspective. Number one is that China's economy remains the hottest and brightest spot in the world economy. So, that's the good news. The challenge really, as I see, is that, over the last 10, 12 years, China's gross fixed capital formation grew at about 12, 13% in real terms a year. So the question is, at what rate does that keep growing? Even if it grows, it cannot grow at 12 or 13, then in fact, Mr. Soros's fears would absolutely come alive. But even if it grows at 5, that means, 5% growth, that means that China's GDP slows down from, the 10 plus 5 to about 6.5.
One thing that I've noticed, and I've been covering China economics now for over 10 years, and either economists and investors are very, very bullish on China or they're very, very bearish. It just doesn't seem like there's much middle ground, if you will. Where is the truth lie? Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe they just have this sort of average growth and the plan's working all along. Does it have to be one extreme or the other, Saruhan?
Not really. Especially this year, though, is important, Phil. I think this year, investors need to see some kind of moving away from fixed investment to consumer or consumption growth. And I think consumption being 35% of GDP is kind of low for the second largest economy. But the good news is consumption growth has contributed over 40% to economic growth last year. And a lot of analysts are missing that. So there's already this rebalancing taking place. And the government measures, especially the reform announcements having come in November, they are actually pointing to understanding the situation and contributing to this process furthermore.
Professor, why is there this still overriding skepticism from some investors and some economists?
Yeah, I think, even the Chinese leadership does not say that China can grow or should grow at something like 8%. Those days have gone pretty much in everybody's eyes, including, as I understand, China's leadership. The question really, and nobody's saying that China will grow at 5. So it comes down to, as I see, say for 2014, 2015, is the right target 7.5, or is it more like 6? And I think it's that difference. Even at 6 for an economy at China's stage of development, that still would be very robust.
I'm going to try very hard to strip away this question of growth, whether they grow at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. Let's just leave that alone for just a moment. Other structural issues, reforms, inflation, the currency issue, foreign direct investment, all these remain very big issues. I know they're all related to overall growth, but should the government or can the government focus on one of these without the other? Saruhan?
Well, they need to look at into credit growth, Phil. Shadow banking is a big problem, but I think they've got it. Again, the outcome of the meeting, they sent a clear message to local municipalities about spending issues. And I think there also needs to be more involvement of the private sector. I think that's coming to in the
You'd
next
like to see
couple of
more
years.
private sector
it has
involvement.
To, and look, there's a huge, vibrant economy here. We're talking about consumer economics, retail, logistics, healthcare. All these services are waiting for investment to come in.
But all these IPOs that we just talked about with Vivi in Shanghai, they've now, it's been a one-year ban, they've released it. So by IPOing all these companies, doesn't that help your case if you're looking for more privatization?
Absolutely, and also foreign direct investment. China is still up there in the top 3 countries in attracting FDI. And our clients as well are not that worried about all the news that's coming out with the shadow banking, and because I don't think the crisis is imminent at this stage.
Now, Professor, I'm going to help play devil's advocate here, because I could be interviewing Saruhan a decade ago, and he would have given me the answer that they were relying upon global growth and they need to diversify into domestic consumption. It's been the same line for 10 years. Have they moved quickly enough, or is this just part of the plan?
Clearly, the pendulum is shifting towards domestic consumption for sure. But if you look at, is it moving as rapidly as Chinese economy needs? Probably not. And I think the reason for that is that bulk of the investment really has gone into the state-owned enterprises and the sectors that are controlled by state-owned enterprises. And although the third plenum clearly talked about the market playing a decisive role, but there are political pressures. I mean, ultimately, the power, as I see, the power lies with the state-owned enterprises, and they are not going to just roll over and kind of play dead.
I'm going to give you, Professor, and you, Saruhan, a chance to profess a bit here to some of the young folks in China. Millions and millions of graduates are graduating from China, and a lot of them are having a real difficult time finding jobs. And I wonder if it's a problem with the right major or the right sector to looking at, but what would your advice be to those that are graduating? What sectors should they be looking at within China?
Yeah, in China, to the young folks, I would say pretty much stay away, by and large, from things having to do with construction, things having to do with real estate, and also more broadly, stay away, if you will, from state-owned enterprises, because they're going to face a tough time for all the well-known reasons.
To be fair, those were the sectors that have been hot in the last decade.
And say, go consumer goods and services of all types.
Exactly.
Last word,
There's an overhang in property. Do not get into construction. But look at logistics as well. Logistics is an interesting field that will get quite a lot of investment and create jobs in China.
Saruhan, CEO of Beri Consulting, and also Professor Gupta over at the University of Maryland. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for helping us figure out, should we be worried or should we not be worried about China's economy going forward? And for many investors there, they may be facing the first default on trust products in that country.